Revenge with Karen.
You deleted my deck. Karen's voice barely rose above a whisper, but it stopped Dana mid-sip of her green juice. The clink of ice in the plastic cup was the only sound in the office kitchen. Dana didn't flinch, just smiled. Oh, I thought that was the draft. Don't worry, I cleaned up the formatting and uploaded my version last night. You'll love it. She winked like they were co-conspirators, that she'd just stolen 2 weeks of Karen's life, and lobotomized it into bullet points with stock photos and numbers that didn't even make sense. Karen didn't say a word. She just nodded and stirred her coffee with the same plastic spoon she'd been using for 4 days, the handle warped like her patience. That's when she knew something was off. The same gut feeling she got before her divorce papers arrived, or the day her cat brought home a squirrel missing its head. An easy silence that always meant a storm was about to break. But we'll get to that. First, hey, quick thing. If you're already hooked and muttering no she didn't under your breath, hit that like button and subscribe. Seriously, 95% of folks listen without subscribing, and it messes with our coffee budget. We tell these stories because they deserve to be told, and your click keeps them coming. All right, back to the chaos. Karen had worked at the company longer than most of the walls had been painted. 10 years, 3 CEOs, 5 Christmas parties, and not a single promotion. She wasn't flashy. She didn't post motivational quotes on Slack. She didn't show up with smoothies or speak in hashtags. She showed up with results. Clean datasets. Bulletproof audits. The kind of behind-the-scenes magic that kept the lights on and the C-suite from getting grilled by shareholders. She never minded being invisible. Not really. She liked being the one people called when the numbers didn't add up or someone's Excel sheet had become haunted. She didn't crave applause, but she did crave respect. And for a long time, she thought she had it. Then came Dana. Dana entered like a hurricane made of dry shampoo and buzzwords. 6 years younger, armed with a PowerPoint smile and a LinkedIn following bigger than the company's own. She transformed spaces, streamlined narratives, and loved to start sentences with "what if we disrupted the paradigm?" by Karen trained her. Not by choice, by assignment. Dana's title was technically Director of Data Engagement, a made-up name for someone who couldn't tell the difference between a pivot table and a Pilates mat. But she was sharp where it mattered. Charismatic, loud, good at meetings, bad at math. She'd repeat Karen's sentences in a louder voice and get credit for originality. By month 2, Dana was sitting in on board prep calls. By month 4, she was leading them. And by month 6, she was volunteering to help Karen with the Q2 projections deck. Karen worked on that deck like it was a Sistine Chapel ceiling, except instead of paint, she was swimming through SQL queries, warehouse pulls, historical trend lines, and risk-adjusted forecasts. While Dana was hosting a data jam with the marketing interns, Karen was untangling discrepancies in revenue tracking across 7 departments. She stayed late every night for 2 weeks, not because anyone asked her to, but because accuracy mattered. Because she still believed, stupidly, that if you made something airtight and unassailable, no one could twist it or steal it. She was wrong. 2 nights before the board meeting, Karen stayed until 11:08 p.m., staring at the last slide until her eyes burned. She triple-checked every formula, locked cells, added annotations for anyone who might ask where a figure came from. She embedded a little signature in the code, just her initials and a timestamp, hidden in the formula logic. Not for credit, for protection. A habit she picked up years ago after a junior analyst tried to take credit for one of her budget forecasts. HR didn't care, but the spreadsheet had. When she finally uploaded it to the shared drive, closed her laptop with the weight of a finished marathon, she even allowed herself a smile. And then morning came. Dana breezed in like a yoga-scented tornado, grinning too wide. Hey, I went ahead and updated the deck with some design tweaks. Hope you don't mind, just made it a little more digestible. Karen clicked the file. Her chest went cold. The charts were butchered. Data sets missing. Risk flags deleted. Worst of all, the growth projections were inflated, not just optimistic, flat-out wrong. The kind of numbers that would make investors cheer right before legal got involved. Karen looked at Dana, who was already halfway down the hallway to the executive wing, latte in hand, waving at the VP of Ops like they were brunch buddies. Something inside her locked into place. She wouldn't yell. She wouldn't fight. She'd wait, watch. And when the time came, she'd let the numbers talk. It started with a smile. Dana popped her head over the cubicle wall like a jack-in-the-box fueled by cold brew and self-promotion. Hey, just saw your deck looking solid. Want me to take a quick pass before we lock it in? I could give it a little sparkle. Maybe punch up the visual flow, you know. Karen didn't even turn her chair. She just kept highlighting a row in her spreadsheet, calm as a surgeon. That's all right, she said. It's already locked and synced to the warehouse. Don't want to break anything. Dana giggled. Sure. Just offering to judge it a bit, make it pop for the execs. We both know how dry data can be. She air quoted like she was seasoning a steak. Karen nodded once, eyes still on her screen, and clicked save with the finality of a judge's gavel. Dana floated away, tapping something into her phone. Probably some aphorism about teamwork she'd later post with a filtered boomerang of her matcha. 2 nights before the board meeting, the floor was nearly empty. Just the hum of Karen's monitor and the occasional echo of someone microwaving sadness in a Tupperware. She didn't need to be there. No one told her to stay late. But that deck, that was her name, her work, her quiet legacy. Every line of it was built like a cathedral, revenue trends, customer churn analysis, a forecast model that could survive a meteor impact. She color-coded heat maps, checked every formula for leakage, and ran 3 simulations just to be sure. Even the footnotes had footnotes. At 11:04 p.m., she uploaded the file to the team drive. Final version. Titled it plainly, Q2 Projections KR Final XLSX. Just below the surface, in a formula cell no one ever looked at, was this. I for auth KR text now plus date. It didn't show up on the slide deck. No one could see it unless they cracked open the formula editor and went cell diving. But it was hers. A fingerprint, and if needed, a fuse. She logged it, backed it up, took a deep breath, closed her laptop. The next morning, 8:17 a.m., she arrived to find Dana already in her chair, feet up, laughing at something on Slack, a breakfast sandwich in one hand, her other hand air-typing to no one. Oh, Karen, meant to ping you, Dana chirped, brushing crumbs off her blouse. I went ahead and re-uploaded the deck last night. Just cleaned up the formatting a bit. Hope that's okay. Karen blinked. You re-uploaded it. Yeah, just made it a little more digestible for the board. Same bones. I just massaged the language, streamlined the graphs, cut a few redundant bits. It sings now. Karen's hand gripped her coffee like it owed her money. She opened the drive. There it was. Same file name, but new timestamp. Uploaded at 1:13 a.m. Dana's account. She clicked. Her pulse ticked up. Gone was the 4-year retention curve. Gone was the tiered performance segmentation by client type. Gone were the risk flags for overextension in Q3. In its place, stock illustrations of success, bar charts with no y-axis, and a revenue forecast that looked like a Tesla stock graph on meth. One slide showed a growth leap based on assumptions Karen hadn't even modeled, because they violated basic math. She scrolled to the metadata. The file was scrubbed clean, except Dana had replaced Karen's internal notes with new ones. Generic, hollow, aligned with enterprise growth pillars. She kept scrolling. The sheet formulas were still there, well, most of them. And buried in the bottom right cell of a hidden tab she forgot to delete was a timestamp. Hers. Karen said nothing. Just closed the file. Dana was already mid-sentence, telling the intern how she cranked it out in one night. No big deal. The intern giggled. Karen returned to her desk, pulled down the new file, pulled up hers, ran a diff script. She counted 12 altered figures, 3 redactions, 2 new assumptions that didn't exist in the financial system, and one line so bold it nearly made her laugh out loud. Q2 net gains forecast, plus 17.5% YoY. Karen had modeled 3.2% with margin for volatility. Her gut coiled, but she didn't confront, didn't escalate. Instead, she copied Dana's version, saved it locally, archived her original, took screenshots, pulled the edit history, printed out a change log and slid it into her desk drawer under her ergonomic wrist rest. The meeting was 36 hours away. Karen straightened her blouse, took a sip of yesterday's coffee. She wrote one sentence in her notebook. Let the numbers burn her. The boardroom looked like a cathedral to ego. Glass walls, $800 chairs, a live Zoom link projected onto the north wall like the Eye of Sauron, and a buffet tray of stale croissants no one ever touched unless the meeting got awkward. It always got awkward. Karen hovered in the doorway, laptop tucked to her chest, heart jackhammering like it always did before high-stakes presentations. Spent the morning calming her breath, rechecking data points in her archived version, reassuring herself that this was salvageable. That maybe Dana hadn't gone full sabotage. That maybe the stakes weren't as high as they felt in her throat. Dana was already inside, commanding the room in her favorite power pink blazer, laughing too loudly at something the CFO said. Her heels clicked across the floor like she owned the building. Saw Karen enter and gave her a little half-wave, just a flick of the fingers, like you give a dog that followed you into the kitchen. "Hey," Dana chirped, perfect timing. "Let's have you grab a seat in the back. I'll drive the narrative. It's just cleaner that way." Karen blinked. "I thought I was presenting." Dana's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You built the base, now I'm telling the story. Trust me, it's better optics." She leaned in, her voice low enough to pass for empathy. "Need flash today, not formulas." Karen stood still for a moment too long. Dana's eyes tightened. The CEO glanced up, mildly impatient. "Right," Karen muttered, slipping into the back row. She picked the chair closest to the AV cart, next to an unplugged extension cord, behind the potted fern that always smelled faintly of mildew. She was half visible on camera, which somehow felt worse than not being seen at all. Ina launched into the deck like she'd authored the whole thing with a glass of wine and divine inspiration. "Our data tells a compelling story," she said, clicking to a title slide Karen hadn't made. It was white text on a stock photo of a mountain peak. The font was Comic Sans. Comic Sans. Karen's mouth went dry. Slide 2, a chart. One of Karen's, but stripped of its axes, its margin of error notations deleted, now claimed a 12% gain in cross-vertical synergy, a metric Karen never once used or believed in. Slide 3, customer retention. Karen had written a detailed breakdown by segment. Now it was a smiley face emoji next to the number 88%. She looked around. No one blinked. The CFO tilted his head slightly but stayed quiet. One of the board members was nodding. Karen's eyes locked on slide 5. Revenue forecast. Ina was saying something about agile transformation, but Karen's brain was stuck on the number. Plus 17.5% growth YoY. That was the fabricated figure. The lie that would trigger impossible hiring targets, inventory planning chaos, maybe even shareholder manipulation if it made it into the quarterly report. It wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. Karen's hand moved to raise. Her lips parted, then something in her gut screamed. Not yet. He dropped her hand. Because now she saw it, Dana was nervous. She'd rehearsed this pitch a dozen times, probably alone in her apartment, glass of wine in one hand, Instagram filter on in the mirror. But she was speeding up, glossing over key charts. Her voice had that tight, cheerful pitch that always came right before someone walked into traffic with too much confidence. Karen glanced at the CEO. He was watching, really watching Dana, arms folded. While you watch a raccoon trying to open a Rubik's Cube. The CFO flipped to his laptop, was typing. Karen reached for her phone, opened the file comparison app she'd installed after the last time someone stole her work. 2 files loaded side by side, Karen Final XLSX and Dana Q2 Pitch PPTX. The differences were glowing red. She took a screenshot, then another. Then emailed herself a zipped folder labeled Smoke and Mirrors. Ina continued talking, unaware of the silence blooming in the room, and by focusing on vertical leverage points, we're projecting exponential lift across all major channels. This next slide shows, click, a new slide. Karen's formula for CAC to LTV ratio, now Frankensteined into a graph with a rainbow-colored gradient and clip art of a rocket. Karen exhaled so sharply, the intern beside her flinched. But she didn't speak. Not yet. Instead, opened her notebook and started writing. Slide 3, chart altered, slide 5. Fabricated projection, slide 7. Wrong axis label, speaker. Nervous, overreaching, CEO, watching, not nodding. Her pen moved calmly, like it wasn't documenting corporate fraud in real time. Her pulse slowed, her mouth closed, and her silence became a blade. Karen didn't go home angry. That was the difference. She didn't throw things or scream into her steering wheel. She drove home like she was returning from a funeral she hadn't been invited to. Quiet. Slow, windows up, radio off. Just the low hum of tires and the occasional flicker of a streetlight through her windshield like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. When she got home, she fed her cat, microwaved a burrito she didn't eat, and sat down at her kitchen table, same one she'd had since grad school, the crack down the middle from when her ex had dropped a cast iron skillet on it during their last Thanksgiving together. The wood was cold against her elbows. The silence wrapped around her like armor. She opened her laptop. The first file she pulled was her original Excel model, Q2 Projections KR Final XLSX, the real one. The one with all the raw warehouse pulls, with every reference cell annotated, every macro debugged, every calculated risk labeled in red. Next, she dragged in the CSV export logs from the internal analytics platform. Timestamps, file access history, warehouse queries, every request logged against her user ID, IP address, and device fingerprint. Clean, traceable, undeniable. Then she pulled the email chain, just 3 messages, all courteous. One from Dana saying, "Can't wait to see what you come up with." Another asking to circle back on final alignment. Both timestamped before Dana's upload. And finally, her little script. She'd written it years ago for department cleanup, a lightweight Python script that sniffed through document edit histories and traced user actions down to the second. A harmless tool, never deployed outside her sandbox. Tonight, it would have its moment. She pointed it at the shared drive folder and hit run. It took 26 seconds. What it returned was a glowing timeline of every edit Dana had made. Each change, each overwrite, the deletions, the additions, the swaps. And the exact moment Dana uploaded the new deck, 1:13 a.m., complete with her machine ID, local timestamp, and user token. Karen saved the report as a PDF, signed it digitally, and titled it Deck Tamper Proof PDF. She zipped it all together. Added one more file, a Word doc labeled Read Me First. She explained, plainly and professionally, the discrepancies between the decks and the implications of the manipulated projections. No anger, no vengeance, just math and metadata. Then she logged into her secure cloud storage and uploaded the folder. She called it insurance, encrypted, archived, triple backed up. Karen didn't sleep that night. She didn't need to. She wasn't tired. She was past tired, to a new zone of crystalline clarity where every breath felt like it had been filed and timestamped too. At 7:52 a.m., she parked in the garage, sat in the car for 7 full minutes, sipping lukewarm gas station coffee and watching people in suits hustle across the skybridge like ants in a flood. At 8:03 a.m., she walked in. She said nothing to anyone, didn't glance at Dana's office, didn't even slow down by the break room. The same dry croissants waited to be ignored. She entered the boardroom and took the same seat as last time, far back, half hidden by the ficus plant. Her laptop bag stayed zipped. Her phone remained face down, her hands folded. Dana was already there, prepping the screen share and doing her trademark pre-presentation small talk, high-pitched, meaningless, and empty of substance, like foam on a bad cappuccino. Karen watched her like a scientist watches a Petri dish. CFO walked in, gave a polite nod. No one else even looked her way, and that was fine. She wasn't here to be noticed. She was here to see, to record, to be present when the truth walked in wearing sensible heels and a spreadsheet. The meeting began. Dana clicked the remote. Karen's eyes didn't move from the screen. But her mind was in the folder sitting quietly in the cloud, watching and waiting with her, to drop like a guillotine at the exact second someone asked the right question. She didn't need justice anymore. She needed proof. Dana glided through the opening slides like a politician at a ribbon cutting, broad smile, buzzwords blooming from her mouth like weeds, and just enough conviction to distract from the cracks beneath her heels. Our data tells a story of transformation, she said, voice syrupy with practiced enthusiasm. One where innovation, velocity, cross-departmental synergy align to drive results. Karen didn't blink. Slide after slide passed, each more hollow than the last. Dana's version of the deck had all the bones but none of the marrow. Karen's work hollowed out, prettied up, and dressed in business casual lies. She kept using the word momentum like it could be graphed. Karen caught small things first. Dana switched out the predictive churn modeling for a generic customer sentiment survey with a 5-point smiley scale. She'd replaced the retention tables with a donut chart that didn't even add up to 100%. The lead funnel diagram was a stock image from a Canva template. Karen had seen it in an email ad for time management courses. And then came the cost savings slide. It was supposed to be the crown jewel. Karen had built it using 6 months of procurement data, price per unit trends, vendor volatility flags, and projected Q3 inflations. She'd modeled it down to the quarter cent. Her version was tight, meticulous, and boringly accurate. Dana's version, a sleek green bar chart with 3 smiling arrows pointing down like the economy was doing cartwheels. The text read, projected operational cost savings, 22%. Karen felt the temperature shift a full degree when the CFO cleared his throat. Sorry, hold on, he said, tapping his keyboard. Where are these numbers from? Dana's smile faltered. Oh, those are rolled up from our procurement audits. I simplified the visual so it wouldn't bog down the room. The CFO narrowed his eyes. Right, but we have those audits. And our internal model shows a savings target of 8.3%, not 22. Ina let out a nervous laugh. Well, I may have baked in some efficiencies we expect to see once the new onboarding tools go live. Expected, he repeated. They're not live yet. Karen didn't move, didn't smirk, just watched. Dana clicked nervously to the next slide. Anyway, the big picture takeaway here, hold on, the CEO interrupted. He'd been silent until now, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded like a parent at a school recital. Who authored this file? Ina blinked. Sorry, the deck, he said, nodding toward the screen. Who created this file? Karen could practically hear Dana's brain scramble. She licked her lips. Oh, it was collaborative. We all contributed, a team effort. Karen felt her stomach harden, not from surprise, she expected this, but from how neatly Dana wielded the word we, as if Karen hadn't spent 2 weeks making the data bleed truth onto every slide. The CFO tapped again. A quiet moment, and just for a second, a flicker on his screen, a hover tooltip. Karen recognized the window, document properties. He was looking at the file's metadata. He wasn't the type to react outwardly. He was the type to log, to verify, to build a case. Karen respected that about him. He wouldn't jump to conclusions, but once he landed hard. Dana kept talking, her voice now a touch too fast. These projections carry forward into Q3 with a linear growth pattern, as seen here, slide click. Another doctored chart, another metric with no sourcing. Karen reached into her bag slowly, pulled out her notebook. She started jotting timestamps. 9:16 CFO challenge, cost savings. 9:18 CEO asks authorship. 9:19 Dana deflects, we all contributed. 9:20 CFO checks metadata. Her pen moved in steady strokes. Detached, she wrote like someone drafting the minutes of a funeral. Dana's voice pitched higher again. She was losing the room in increments, faster now. Words like leveraged insights and 360-degree view filled the silence like air freshener in a burning room. Karen glanced up at the Zoom wall. One of the board members, dialing in from Boston, was frowning. Another was clearly reading something on his second monitor, face pinched, distracted. And the CEO wasn't looking at Dana anymore. He was looking at the CFO. And the CFO, still silent, was looking directly at Karen. Just for a moment, not accusatory, not confused, just aware. Dana was still rambling, now explaining a cost leadership strategy that Karen knew had been pulled from someone's LinkedIn post. The CEO held up a hand. Let's pause here. I'd like to revisit that cost savings number. Dana froze. Oh, sure. Let's take 5. Karen closed her notebook, slid it back in her bag. Her silence was no longer passive. It was strategy weaponized. The room began to shift, not loudly, not yet, but it was coming. And Karen could feel the floor begin to tilt. The air in the room had turned syrupy thick, like everyone suddenly realized they were breathing through molasses and couldn't figure out why their lungs felt heavy. Dana kept tapping the clicker, eyes flicking between the slides and the faces in front of her, hoping momentum would save her. It wouldn't. The slide now up on screen was a butchered version of Karen's customer segmentation analysis. In her original, it was a multi-layered breakdown by acquisition channel, historical churn rate, and LTV per segment. Dana's version, pie chart, primary colors. A label that simply read happy customers equals more money. Karen didn't laugh. She didn't flinch. She just stared at the back of Dana's head, waiting. Then, like a conductor raising a baton before a devastating note, the CFO shifted in his chair. He turned his laptop, angled it slightly toward the CEO, and leaned in. Just a whisper, nothing dramatic, just a quiet exchange like you'd have before confirming a medical diagnosis. The CEO blinked. His face, previously unreadable, grew sharper. Less bored, more interested. He sat forward, folding his hands like a judge hearing opening arguments. Ina didn't notice yet. She was still on autopilot, her mouth generating phrases like granular uplift and agility loops, none of which meant a damn thing. The CEO raised a hand. No hurry, no drama, just a flat palm in the air. Dana stopped. He turned toward her slowly. Dana, who uploaded this version of the board deck. There was a half-second of dead silence before she answered, too quickly. Well, it was a team effort. Karen handed off her version. I polished it up for presentation. Karen kept her eyes locked on a smudge on the conference table. She could feel every molecule in her body pulsing. Her heartbeat in her fingertips, in her jaw, in her goddamn eyelids. She didn't speak. The CFO cleared his throat. His voice was calm, even measured, like he was narrating a weather forecast, not someone's professional eulogy. "That's strange," he said, "because the metadata tells a different story." Dana blinked. I'm not sure what you mean. The document properties show that while the core file originated from Karen's account, and the underlying formulas were authored and timestamped from her user credentials, every single edit, upload, and overwrite in the final version came from yours, including the removal of audit flags and the revision of projected growth rates. Dana's face went ghost white. Karen didn't move, not an inch. Her posture didn't change. But inside, body lit up like a server farm. She could feel her stomach clench and her breath thicken, but her expression remained a perfect portrait of neutral professionalism, like she hadn't rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. The CEO looked at the screen again, the cost-savings slide, the made-up metrics. The grinning arrow graphic Dana thought made her look visionary. He tilted his head. "So just to be clear, you took Karen's work, edited it without attribution, uploaded it under your own account, altered core financials, and presented it as collaborative." Dana opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Then, I didn't alter, I just clarified the narrative. It's still our data, the team's data." The CEO didn't blink. "Did Karen approve the changes?" Dana looked at Karen then for the first time. A silent plea or maybe a threat. Her eyes said, "Say something. Back me up. Don't make this worse." Karen didn't flinch. CFO spoke again. "The risk analysis was removed. The vendor volatility flags, the margin buffers. You didn't clarify a narrative. You fabricated a forecast." 10 seconds passed. 10 seconds that stretched like wet chewing gum on the soul. No one spoke. No one coughed. One board member stopped taking notes and just stared. Another slowly reached for his water bottle, then stopped halfway. Dana's mouth moved, no sound. Just an attempt at words, as if the right sentence might rise from the ashes and fix this. It didn't. Karen looked down at her hands. Her knuckles were white. She relaxed them, slowly, one finger at a time. The trap was set, and now it had closed. The CEO's tone was no longer inquisitive, it was surgical. Cold steel wrapped in velvet. He wasn't asking questions to learn anymore. He was narrowing in. "Karen," he said, without looking at Dana, "did you write this?" All eyes turned. He didn't speak right away. She didn't have to. The silence carried enough weight to flatten a cubicle wall. Finally, in a voice just above a whisper, steady, unflinching, Karen answered, "Not that version." A beat passed. Then two. Someone near the end of the table coughed into their hand like it might erase the tension clawing its way up the walls. Across from her, the head of legal, a stone-faced woman named Lynette, who rarely spoke unless things were actively on fire, closed her notepad. No announcement, no expression, just quietly stood and walked out, leaving her water untouched. That was the signal, the room felt it. Dana tried to patch the sinking ship. "I didn't change anything meaningful," she said too quickly. "I just looked, Karen handed me the file, and I just did formatting cleanup. We were on a deadline. I mean, the bones were all hers, but the presentation needed polish. That's all. We work as a team." "Right, Karen." Karen didn't even blink. Dana's voice cracked. "Come on, this is a misunderstanding. It's not like I stole anything." The CEO raised a single finger. Dana's mouth clamped shut like she'd just heard a courtroom gavel drop. "No spin," he said. His voice was calm, controlled, the kind of calm that comes right before structural demolition. "You edited a board-level financial document, removed disclaimers, padded metrics, removed attribution. Do you think that wouldn't be noticed?" Dana stammered. "It was just optics. Everyone does it. Not here, they don't." The CEO snapped, eyes finally locking onto her with ice. He pushed his chair back and stood up slowly. Every eye followed, my office. Now, Dana froze. For half a second, she looked at Karen again, like she still believed she could make this disappear with a shared secret or a nod. But Karen just stared forward, face blank, 1,000 words behind her eyes, but none that she would give Dana. Dana stood. Her legs looked shaky. The heels that had carried her so confidently into this room now made her steps awkward, like she was walking through water. She followed the CEO out the door, leaving behind her tablet, her clicker, her perfectly color-coded agenda packet. The door clicked shut behind them. Inside the boardroom, no one said a word. The CFO slowly closed his laptop. One of the external board members whispered something to the person next to them. Another took out a pen and wrote a single line in the corner of his printout. Karen saw it, upside down. It said, "Re-audit Q2 forecast." Karen sat still, She felt strange, not triumphant, not proud, not angry, just emptied. She had won something, maybe, or at least defended herself. But this wasn't the feeling you get when justice lands like a gavel. Felt like standing outside your house after a storm, seeing the tree that nearly crushed your roof lying dead in the yard. Relief, maybe, but no celebration. Across the table, the intern glanced at her and then quickly looked away, embarrassed, like he'd just realized he cheered for the wrong side in a high school fight. The projector was still glowing behind Dana's abandoned notes. Karen reached into her bag, slowly pulled out her notebook again. She didn't write this time, just opened to the page with the timeline. The edits, the timestamps, the trap, then closed it gently and rested her hands on top, waiting, not for thanks, not for apologies, just for the next shoe. The email from HR hit her inbox at 2:13 p.m. Subject line plain as toast, follow-up request, Q2 materials. Karen stared at it for a moment, letting the words settle like dust on a window pane. The kind of email that could mean anything, or everything. She clicked. Hi Karen, legal has requested a conversation regarding the original Q2 data deck. Would you be available for a brief meeting today to clarify some document history? No exclamation points, no pleasantries, just corporate anesthesia. She replied in under a minute, available anytime. Just send the link. 15 minutes later, she sat in a glass-walled meeting room 2 floors up, HR on one side of the screen, Eagle on the other, both stone-faced. Both wearing the same expression, we want answers and we want them without noise. Karen gave them everything. She didn't editorialize, didn't point fingers. She simply walked them through it like she was explaining a spreadsheet to a summer intern. She shared her screen, opened her folder, Insurance, clicked into the subfolders, opened the original Excel file, showed the timestamp embedded in the formulas, pulled up the Python script, let it run again in real time. The change log populated with every edit Dana had made. Who, when, where, then the emails, subtle, professional, all implying Karen was leading the deck effort with Dana playing a vague support role. The final nail, a PDF titled Deck Tamper Proof, a line-by-line diff comparison. Red for changes, blue for deletions, green for additions. She hadn't built it for this moment, but it fit like a custom glove. Legal leaned in. Did you create this audit trail intentionally? The woman on the other end asked, eyes narrow but not unkind. Karen shrugged. Habit. The woman stared, no reply, just the slow tick of thoughts assembling behind her glasses. HR spoke next. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you for your time, Karen. She nodded once, logged off. No applause, no handshake, just silence again. But this time it didn't sting. She walked back to her desk, sat down, opened a blank browser tab, typed nothing into it, just stared out the window at the courtyard below. An intern was throwing pieces of bread at a goose that clearly wanted blood. Across the floor, people were whispering. Not to her, of course, but near her, like the space around her had changed temperature and no one could quite figure out why the thermostat was locked. By 5:46 p.m., her email pinged again. From recruiter@clarion.com subject, saw your work today. Karen opened it, blinking in surprise. The recruiter's name was familiar. She'd noticed her during the meeting, third Zoom window from the left, never spoke, just watched. The message was short. Hi Karen, I was present during today's board session. I'd like to talk, off the record, if you prefer. We've had our eye on your company's analytics for a while, and seeing the truth emerge so clearly today. Well, let's just say you made an impression. Let me know if you're open to a conversation. Warmly, Lisa Carrington SR. Talent Acquisition, Clarion Data Systems. Karen sat back in her chair. Clarion, one of the biggest data strategy firms on the East Coast. Top-tier clients, high ethics bar, and definitely not the kind of place that sent cold outreach unless they'd already done their homework. She read the message again, then a third time. Her finger hovered over the reply button. Not yet, she thought. Instead, she opened her calendar, scrolled 2 weeks forward, highlighted Friday, added a meeting title, Exit Interview Prep. Then finally she smiled, not big, not smug, just the kind of smile that comes when a storm has passed and you're still standing, dry, holding the umbrella they swore you didn't need. Across the room, the CEO stepped out of his office. He glanced toward her, gave the smallest nod, barely more than a blink, and kept walking. It wasn't recognition, it was respect, and that was more than enough. The office felt quiet, not in the usual Monday morning email panic kind of way. No, this was a different kind of quiet, hushed, tense, reverent, like the air had been drained out of the building overnight and no one wanted to make the first noise that broke the seal. Karen stepped off the elevator at 8:04 a.m., same time as always. Same scarf, same steel travel mug full of coffee that hadn't been hot since 2019. She passed the reception desk, nodded at security, and walked toward her side of the floor. As she rounded the corner, she paused just briefly outside Dana's office. Empty, desk cleared, chair pushed in, whiteboard erased. The nameplate still read D. J. Wells, Director, Data Strategy, but the badge reader next to the door flashed red when Karen passed. Dead access. Deactivated. No boxes, no goodbyes, just silence. And then ripples. The whispers started in the break room, riding steam from the ancient coffee pot and the smell of burnt toaster waffles. Two interns leaned in too close over styrofoam cups, one whispering, "Heard legal pulled audit logs from last quarter too." She changed figures back then too. Like, all the way back to onboarding metrics. Someone else muttered, it wasn't just the deck. Been massaging numbers on the talent pipeline data. Inflated diversity hires, projected retention. All of it, smoke and mirrors. Karen didn't engage. She just grabbed her coffee, walked out, and made her way back to her desk. She didn't open her inbox, not yet. She didn't need to, because at 9:11 a.m., she saw the CEO walking the floor. He never did that. Not unless something seismic had just happened or was about to. He moved slow, deliberate. No phone, no assistant trailing behind. He spotted her, pivoted, walked straight over. Karen, she stood. He didn't offer a handshake, just looked at her the way someone looks at a firefighter after the blaze is out and the house is still standing. "Thank you," he said, "for your patience." Karen didn't nod, didn't beam. She just reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "In case you want the accurate version." He took it without another word, looked at it like it weighed more than plastic should, then walked away. No parade, no HR-approved appreciation post, just the sound of his shoes fading down the hallway. By 3:17 p.m., Karen had seen the signs. Two of Dana's executive supporters had gone uncharacteristically silent in meetings. One VP removed a LinkedIn endorsement that had been up since May. A Slack channel quietly disappeared. The glass doors had begun their slow spin. 5:42 p.m., she finally opened her personal inbox. There it was. Subject: offer letter, Clarion Data Systems base salary 22% higher than her current. Signing bonus, remote first. Full IP credit on all forecasting models. Autonomy. Karen sat with it a moment. Then she opened a blank Word doc. "To whom it may concern, please accept this letter as formal notice of my resignation. Effective 2 weeks from today." It was short, precise, polite. She printed it, folded it once, slipped it into her bag. That night, as she locked her apartment door, fed the cat, and kicked off her shoes, she didn't feel euphoria. She felt release. She hadn't flipped the table. She hadn't gone scorched earth. She hadn't screamed or threatened or posted a single damn thing online. She just let the truth stand in the middle of the room, naked and time-stamped. Let it speak in formulas and edits and overwritten cells. She'd handed them the matches and walked away before the spark caught. That was the revenge, not fire, but clarity. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.